Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a random Q&A. Because of some things going on in my life, I haven't had the chance to be as active in answering comments. I haven't been able to do vlogs and things like that, and so I thought it would be nice to be able to kind of sit and be more personal and casual and chatty with all of you. I haven't looked at your questions ahead of time, so I'm just gonna jump into it because I do think from what I saw that there are quite a few, and I apologize if I don't get around to yours. But the very first one says, if you had to give up music or books, which would you pick? Man, right out the gates with a really difficult one. For those that don't know, I majored in music. Music was an incredibly important part of my childhood. Of course, I don't want books out of my life either, but nowadays everything's getting adapted. So I just feel like I don't have anything else that I could substitute with music, but I know it's not the same. But I just feel like I would have to give up books. The next one is much nicer. It says, what was your favorite go-to comfort food? I'm not usually one to sit and snack a lot. I consume beverages a lot, and some of you know that I am very much invested in the ice carbonated flavored water drinks, but those, they're not really comforting. They're just like habitual. I feel like when I've had a bad day, or if I'm stressed, or if I need that comfort, I just chicken. The next one says, what is your dream vacation? Give me a forest with big trees and mountains and water, and that's perfect. This next question says, which part of America are you from? I am from Arizona, aka one of the driest, hottest places ever. The next question is, do you have an update on when your next book will be out? And I had hoped the end of this year. That is obviously not happening because, you know, personal life stuff that was awful. But I would like to get back into it when I can, and then hopefully by the end of next year, 2021. You all are very sweet. I rarely talk about my book, but the next few questions are still about that. One person asked if I'm working on a new one. One of them asked how many will be in the current series. So that book up there, that's my book. And likely 5 to 7. And I say likely 5 to 7 because while I do know the end of the story and I know a lot of the major plot points in between, I also want to allow myself some flexibility and freedom. If I'm too rigid and I'm like, it has to be this many, then I think that can mess things up. And as far as if I'm working on a new book, besides the sequel to that one, which is Remnants of Dawn, I do have some other stories, but I'll just leave it there. The next question says, what made you decide to cut your hair short? It's such a cute cut. Thank you. That's very nice. I feel like my reason for cutting it is lackluster. It was basically, I want to cut my hair, and then I just cut it off. I grabbed some scissors and cut it. The next question says, tell us more about your music life. So, when I was a kid, I have a lot of half siblings, but I also have just one full-blood sister. And she's 5 years older than me, so I'm very much the youngest in my family. And that's the sister I grew up with, and she was the kind of person that always wanted to try something, and then she was like, I want to try this over here, and I want to try this over here. And I'm an obsessive person, so when I want to do something, I just want to do that forever and always, kind of a thing where I'm like, I'm gonna spend hours of my life doing this one thing. I'm not very well rounded in that regard. Sister played violin, and I was always like, I want to try. And she's like, no, my teacher says not to let our little siblings touch it, which is actually what the teacher at the school, Mrs. Wilson, was her name. She had 2 L's, and to help kids remember her spelling, she would always say that. She was awesome. But anyway, so my sister would never let me touch it. And I'm like, but I'm a good kid, I'm careful, please. And she's like, no. And then, so when I finally got to 5th grade, which is where we get to pick an instrument to play, I was like, violin, because I'd been thinking about it for 5 freaking years. And then I finally got my violin, and I was terrible, of course, because violin is super hard. So I finally got my violin. I was bad at it, but I was like, that's okay, I'll practice a lot. And I did practice a lot. And also, I was very sad as a child, because my home life was very sad. And music helped me a lot. So it was the thing that I poured, all the things I suppressed and kept in, I poured it into my music, and I don't want to use that cheesy saying like, it saved my life or anything like that, but it helped keep me feeling Okay. This person says, it's a little random, but did I see it right that Brandon Sanderson is following you? That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why. I'm sure it's not even him. I'm sure it's one of his assistant people, and I have done a couple of fan art things, so they probably, because I saw that they liked one of them one time. And I say they because, again, I don't know if it's actually Brandon Sanderson, but they saw it, and my guess is they just clicked follow or something. It actually scares me because I've had people say, like, you should do author interviews, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. You know how awkward that is if I don't like one of their books? Like, I want to be able to always be honest, and I'm not saying people aren't honest, but I do think a bias develops, right? So I have a whole video about books I'm biased toward, and I didn't like Steelheart, and I also didn't like Mistborn Secret History, and I would feel bad not being able to be as honest out of fear of, like, hurting their feelings or something. So I really hope that he doesn't pay that much attention to me, except for now that my hair is short. Some people have said that I kind of resemble how they imagined Vin. And hey, you know what? I'll play Vin. Saying I resemble Vin is literally the best compliment anybody could ever give me. I'm such a loser, but it makes me so happy, because don't we all do that? Maybe you don't, I don't know, but sometimes when I love a character so much and I see myself in them so much, and I do with Vin, then I'm like, also, she's small, and also she has dark hair, and also I'm pretty sure she's pale, and, like, I can be that, and I've heard there's talks of an adaptation, so I also can be really mean and give really good glares, which probably doesn't seem accurate, but it's true. Just ask my husband. The next question says, what music have you been jamming to recently? WAP. Actually, that's not exactly accurate. I listened to it because I'm like, what is everybody freaking out about? Can I just go on a side tangent here? First off, I haven't really been jamming out to music much lately, but I do want to address that for a second here, and I know people are like, uh-oh, I don't know if you should, but I'm going to. So, what's the big deal? And I say that not, like, I get that some people are like, it's really explicit and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but, like, music's been really explicit for a long time, and so are movies and TV shows, and I guess I'm confused, like, why this one? Why is this the one that everyone's, like, really... I guess, okay, let me stop for a second. I don't know how many of you know who the comedian Tom Segura is and his wife Christina P., but they have a podcast called Your Mom's House. Also, his best friend is a comedian. His name is Bert Kreischer, and they have a podcast called Two Bears, One Cave. I promise this is going somewhere. That podcast, those podcasts, tap into some of the weirdest, I'm not trying to shame anybody, but, like, not your typical things that people you would expect would be into, and they get into, they talk about some of the nastiest stuff, and then I hear WAP, and I'm like, yeah, there's a lot weirder stuff going on in the world than this. I don't know. And plus, I'm also like, look, everybody's allowed to be outraged about trivial things, but that's what bothers me is it's like people are acting like this isn't, like this is some really important thing. And I'm like, wouldn't it be great if people cared more about, I don't know, sex trafficking instead of caring this much about one random rap song? Here's all I'm saying, and this applies to a lot of things. If you don't like it, you're allowed to not like it, and then just, that's it, just you don't like it, and you're allowed to not like it, but just move on. Like when people are like, it's degrading to women, I'm like, that's weird, because she didn't make me show my butt in a video, so it didn't degrade me at all. Let's get back on track. The next one says, a scene in a book that completely blew your mind and that you still remember. Oh, there's so many. There's some scenes in Full Metal Alchemist. I obviously can't say the specific scenes because they'll spoilery, but there's some scenes in Full Metal. Kingdom of Back, I feel like as soon as I started that stupid book, oh my gosh, I love it so much. As soon as I started it, I was like, oh man, this is gonna make me sad. And there are just so many times that I'm like, oh, it's so heartbreaking, and I would tab it. And Fireborn, there's a part where a character is talking about living in poverty, and they just very bluntly are like, I think we ate our dog. And then they tell a story about how they're pretty sure their dad fed them their dog when they were starving. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. that kind of stuff. And then, of course, there's a scene where a certain someone in the Stormlight Archive says, there's the one everybody likes to quote, the honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do. But the quote that always gets me is the skies are mine. That quote, oh, I love it so much. And then, like, everything at the end of Mistborn. So, I'm being pretty basic. All the stuff I love. This question, what is your favorite fruit? I am a terribly picky eater, and green apples are basically the only fruit that I like out of smoothie form. So, green apples win by default. Next question says, if you had to choose one fantasy world to live in, where would you live? You could use the magic. Well, in that case, I'm going to Scadrial, and I'm going to be a Mistborn, and I'm going to be Vin. Ooh, a Witcher question. Triss, Yen, or Shani? Okay, Triss is the worst. That, I feel like, was misleading. I don't like Triss. Shani, I feel like, is actually the sweetest and maybe, like, most normal. But heck, I love Yennefer. There's a couple questions in a row about what languages I speak. If I could learn a new language, what would it be? I only speak English. So, yeah. So I have grandparents on my mom's side that are from Cuba. My mom speaks Spanish. They speak Spanish. My grandma is old, and sometimes she'll forget that I don't speak Spanish, and she'll start speaking to me in Spanish, and it always breaks my heart. So I wish that I spoke Spanish. Next question is, would you ever get another dog? Heck, yes. I want so many dogs. You guys need to convince Sean. I show him, like, every evening. I'm like, look at the pictures of the dogs I saved today. So I love dogs so much. I absolutely would get more dogs. Luna Bear right now is just in her little bed. You know what? I'm going to show you because it's so cute. Don't mind that the room is messy, but, like, let me see if I can show you what she's doing. Okay. Look at her in her little bed. How cute is that, huh? What a cutie. The next question is, have you ever played Kingdom Hearts? Yes, I beat all of the first one, and then I never got around to playing the rest. Speaking of video games, I'm sorry, I have to shout out Ghost of Tsushima. It's the freaking saddest game, and it's so good. Now that we're on the topic of video games, is anybody else really excited about the second Horizon Zero Dawn? Oh my gosh. Oh, and the Final Fantasy VII Remake. What are your guys' thoughts on that? The next question is, do you have any show recommendations? Yes, I love really dark, morbid humor, and the show What We Do in the Shadows is my favorite show now. It's so funny. It's about vampires of all things, but it's a mockumentary, which those are my favorite formatted shows in general. So, for example, like The Office, Parks and Recs, that style of show. And it's that, but they're these vampires that have been living in this house, and they have familiars that are humans, and the familiars kind of run all their errands and do everything for them. But when they do have to go out and about, they have no clue about modern life, and it's the funniest thing to me. I'll end this one with a fun one because it has to do with friendship. And it says, if you could be best friends with any Stormlight Archive character, who would it be? I saw another question about crushes, and I'll talk about both of these for a second. Fictional crushes. I feel like Roy Mustang, Kaladin, but the person that I probably have to, like, say this one the most as far as, like, realistically compatible would be Laszlo from Strange the Dreamer, because he's sweet, he's empathetic, he's caring, but he's also, like, manly, and he's intelligent, and he's just always wanting to learn more. And the reason that I like that so much is because it makes me think of my hubby, who is the best husband ever, and he is a sweet, kind soul, but also he's, like, manly, and he, like, likes to learn, and he's real nice to me. When it comes to friendship, I had to get the Kaladin thing out of the way because it'd be cool to be friends with him, but also I feel like I get depressed and he gets depressed, and I don't know how we would, like, be there for each other and we'd relate to each other, but also sometimes I feel like maybe, you know, we would have a hard time. So I gotta go with Rock. Who wouldn't want to be best friends with Rock? He's awesome, he makes good food, he's funny, and he's, like, giant. You know, every time you go somewhere, you don't have to worry as a small lady. I feel like I'll be like, yeah, I'm with this guy. He's awesome. He's my friend. He's gonna make me soup. And Syl. I want to be friends with Syl too. I don't know how that friendship would go, but I think it would be a lot of fun. Anyway, that is it for this very random Q&A. Thank you so much for all the really thoughtful questions. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I'll see you later. Bye.